Hey everyone, welcome to Palm Beach International Raceway for the first race video of my newly finished Formula F. I know in my last video I said that we were going to New Jersey for an SCCA regional, and we did that. It was sort of a shakedown, I guess, more than a race because we didn't really, I don't think we finished a full session that weekend. We had a few teething problems, and as it turns out, um, making a car run, driving it, and working video was too much for me to all do at once. So I wasn't able to get as much video as I would like, and the GoPro that I was trying to use, it didn't really work very well. The battery died, and it was kind of a hassle. So since then, I made the investment for SmartyCam, which actually plugs in not only to the battery in my car, so it's powered by the battery and ultimately by the alternator, but also it plugs into the data logger in my car, so we'll be able to get telemetry, which is going to be really cool, and help give you guys a little bit more insight onto what I'm doing with the car and how it's working. So sorry about that, but we're here at Palm Beach International Raceway a few weeks later, and at another SCCA regional. These are club races, so it's not super competitive. The field isn't very big, but it's a great place to get relatively cheap seat time. I think entry fees were about $300 for the weekend, where in the Pro Series it's around $1,000, and if you go up to higher level Pro Series, it gets even more expensive. So for the amount of track time we got, especially on Friday, we did testing, and that was like maybe $150 for the day, and you get a half-hour session every hour, all day, from about 9 o'clock until the sun sets. So it was a great place to finish up the shakedown of the car, and I've got some video for you guys about the races that we did, and maybe some other things. I think testing, I was hoping to show you guys a little bit about what we do to make the car faster, but frankly on Friday we were just trying to make sure that everything worked properly. So I think I might leave that to another video. But yeah, so let's take a look at Palm Beach International Raceway. It's not a super interesting course. I think it was enjoyable, but it's completely flat. There aren't any really very fast corners. I mean, you sort of turn 5 there, that really long right-hander you kind of dive into, and that's kind of exciting. But everything else, pretty much, there's a long straightaway on the back. And that's pretty much, I mean, there's not really much else to say about it. Best passing zone, I think, is in turn 10. After the long straightaway, you can get a good draft. Turn 1 is also not a bad one. And also, maybe 4 and 5. I mean, on 5, you have to swing way out to the left to get on the right line. And if you're brave and maybe a little bit stupid, you can make a move there if the driver in front of you is leaving the door open. But that's about it. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else there is to say. Some of the other things about this race is that it's a multi-class race. There were 6 Formula Fords, 2 Club Fords, which are, I think, pre-1980 Formula Fords. There was a Formula 500, which is a CVT transmission, snowmobile engine powered open wheel car, it's a really very kind of a fairly strange car, but they're pretty quick, and you'll see me race with him a little bit. And then behind him are the Formula Vs, which I'll talk about once we get into the car. And yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, let's hop into the car and get going. Alright, so here we are in the car rolling out of the pit lane for the formation lap. You can see in front of me are the Formula Vs I just mentioned. The interesting thing about them is that they are powered by the Volkswagen Beetle air-cooled engines from when they started making them maybe in the 50s through the 70s, maybe into the 80s, I'm not really sure. But so they've got not only the engine from that car, but also the suspension. You can see they've got the swing axle rear suspension, and they've got those, I guess they've got the dampers and the damper struts hanging out of the suspension on the front. And these cars, they're kind of goofy looking and kind of dorky looking. and they're really slow in terms of race cars, but they're also really cheap. You can get a decent one for under $10,000, and they're very competitive as well. They're not very fast, so they draft really well, and the races are always, they're similar to Formula Ford races in that they're always nose to tail for the entire race, and it's just like a train. So if anybody watching this is trying to say they want to get into racing, into car racing, road racing, but don't have a huge budget, these are definitely something to think about. You can tow them to the track with your, with your sedan on an open trailer, and it's they're just a good way to go racing to get started. Here we are, leading on to the back straight. You can see me weaving back and forth like the other guys, trying to get some heat into the tires. I don't really know. There's some debate about whether that actually does anything. I guess if the Formula One guys do it, then who are we to question them? But another thing that it definitely does is that it helps keep them clean. And we were paddocked on the grass, so anytime I rolled back into our paddock session, or into our paddock space at the end of the session, my tires would be covered in grass. So anytime I rolled out on the track, I wanted to give it a good nice weave to scrub them up, and to scrub all the grass and rocks off. So here we are lined up for the start. Of course, this is my first start in a year since the last video I made at the F2000 race, and so I'm being super cautious, especially since I don't know anyone I'm racing against. And these cars are all, you can see I'm sort of half throttle. Not really sure what to do about these guys because they're all super slow, and I just sort of walk around them on the outside. You can see that blue car up front, that's the Formula 500 car I was talking about. It actually has a CVT transmission, so you don't shift gears and it's just a constant drone. They sound kind of annoying if you're watching them trackside. Fortunately, I can't hear it from my car. But I want to get around him. I know that those cars are actually almost as fast as my car, as the Formula Fords, at least when they're competitive, so I'm not really sure what to make of them. I'm trying to sort of feel them out a little bit. Think about going inside there, but again, this is a regional race. These guys all want their cars to go home in one piece, and they want to go to work on one day, so any sort of moves that I might make in a pro race, I'm going to think twice about doing here, especially since I haven't raced in so long. But you can see here I'm starting to gain on him at the second half of the back straight, and now I know I've got him, just because I've got so much momentum from the draft. And I'm on the brakes, and I make the pass, and I take the corner. So now I've gotten past all of the non-Formula Fords, and so I'm sort of, because I don't know how fast these guys are. I didn't set any times in qualifying, and I don't know how fast I am, basically. So I'm trying not to push too hard to keep up with them, but also I don't want to fall back. You can see by now I'm a bit relieved that they haven't pulled away completely and that I'm actually reeling them in. So I know that at this point I know I'm not too far off the pace. I might actually be able to take some of these guys. Like I mentioned, this is actually what's known as a Club Ford, so it's the same class, same category, but pre-1980, I think. I think that's the cutoff. It might be a little bit later, but I'm not sure. The car that I just passed and the red one in front of me are both older Formula Fords. They look really cool with the springs hanging out of the Airstream, like an old school Formula One car, and they've got the radiators up front. You see how I'm almost, excuse me, I'm almost right up against the rev limiter in that corner. We haven't changed the gear stack since Brands Hatch when I raced there, but way back in 2012. So the gearing isn't ideal for this course. It's not undrivable, which is good, but there's two places where you can see that the gearing is all wrong. One was going into turn 5 when I'm on the rev limiter, and the other one is at the end of the back straightaway here. There's 1 or 2 laps where I'm in the draft and I get to the end of the rev range, but most of it is, this is actually one of them, I'm almost, you can see how the shift lights in the cockpit, I get to that red light there, which means that I'm close to the shift point. But later on, when I'm sort of just lapping by myself and I don't have a draft, by the time I get to the braking zone for the last turn, I'm just hitting the first light on the shift lights in 4th gear, which means that I'm basically losing power. And you can see, well, I don't want to spoil the other races, but it becomes an issue later on. So right now I'm trying to sort of get a feel for this guy, figure out, because I know at this point, he hasn't pulled away. I know that I'm faster than him, but how, where am I faster? How can I exploit those strengths to get past him? And I think right there is one of the places that I identified. Coming out of that turn onto the back straightaway, much faster. This guy's a little bit stronger than the white car that I passed before. He leaves the door open there a little bit. This is one of those instances where if this were a pro race and he left that open, I would have jumped in. But like I said, we all want to go home with our cars in one piece, and I don't have the confidence that I used to have, so I opted to sort of just play it safe and live to fight another day. See up here coming into this next turn, I get hard into the rev limiter. So there's one of the Formula V's. It's only been a few laps and we're just getting around them. I think I forgot to mention that this race is 7 laps. I was having some problems with the timing beacon in my car is actually GPS based. So there's, when I cross the start-finish line, instead of having a light beacon, which is what the old system was, there's actually GPS data in the logger, and it senses when I get to that point. The problem is that the back straightaway is very close to the front straightaway. So I think what was happening is that sometimes when I would go down the back straightaway, the imprecision, if that's a word, of the GPS calculations, when I cross a certain point, it thinks that I'm on the front straightaway crossing the start-finish line. So some laps I was getting 20-second lap times, which is, combine that with the 19-second lap time that came before it, showed that it picked up an improper start-finish signal. So so even though it says lap 8 there on the 7-lap race, I think I only did it once this race. So this is the final lap, I believe. But the lap counter, at least at this track, is fairly unreliable. The next race is 15 laps, and I think it happened a couple times where it triggered the wrong start-finish line, the invisible one. So I think we're about to take the start-finish. That's the white flag, so we have one more lap to go. At this point, I'm sort of resigned to being behind this guy, but I want to. One of the things that I really need to do is to get comfortable getting close to other cars. So this is a good opportunity to do that. I think I'm going to have to get closer than I am right now. I mean, when you're coming out of the corners, especially onto that long back straightaway, you have to be right on their gearbox to take advantage of the draft. And I'm just not confident doing that, especially going into braking zones. When they don't have brake lights on them, you have to sort of use your intuition to know when they're going to start slowing down. And it'll come, just with more seat time and more practice and more experience. I had it before when I raced, in my first career, so it'll come back. I just need to keep working at it. He knows it's the last lap. He takes a very defensive line going into that corner. And there's the checkered flag. So this was kind of it was a quick race. 7 laps isn't very, very long, especially on such a kind of a short circuit. But it was the first race that I'd finished with this car, which is great. It's a great feeling that I basically built this car myself. Had a few people come in and do the heavy lifting, and my dad helped me out quite a bit as well. But a lot of it I did myself, and it's a great feeling to cross the line, finish your first race with a car that you built yourself. That's what we came here to do, and it's encouraging. And the car worked almost flawlessly, aside from there were a few things. I think the shift lights were working, but you can see the bar just under the shift lights where the 4 is, which is supposed to be what gear I'm in, but that wasn't working either. The RPM counter on the actual dash wasn't lighting up. And the gear number calculator wasn't working properly for some reason. Even though I told it on the computer that I only had 4 gears, I thought I had 6. So we're going to have to figure out what's wrong with that. And then the GPS issue that I mentioned earlier, I think it's just unique to this track because the back straightaway is so close, but maybe when we go to another track we will realize if that was what the problem was. But the big thing is that the engine worked just fine. We had some problems in New Jersey with the suspension. What was happening was that the bolt on the bottom of the upright was coming through the bottom, and then it was disconnecting the lower wishbone. So that would drop into the wheel, and we actually tore up a rim and poked a hole in a tire from that. So that we took it back to the guy that did the fabrication on the car. He made some new washers, and he looked at all 4 corners of the car and fixed that problem for us, as well as a couple other minor things here and there, like tightening down the battery and other things like that, other little things like that. The thing about these race cars is that they're almost like living creatures. It's like a pet. Even when the project is finished, there's always stuff to work on. There's always little improvements to be made, and anytime you take it on track, it's going to come off a little bit worn. So it requires constant maintenance. And even we brought the car back home after this weekend, and we have a whole bunch of stuff to do to make it a little bit better. And that's something that's never going to end. But that's part of the fun. So. And you can see, I think what happened was I wasn't sure if I needed to go to tech after the race, but I don't think I did. And I don't really care about recording the results anyway, since this was just a shakedown. You can see we're on the grass, and you can just sort of see where our paddock space is there. But that was our first race. I'm happy with how it went. The car works. The car worked perfectly, and you know, we've got 2 more races to go through this weekend, and if the car works just as well, then we can start figuring out how to make it go faster, which is what we really want to do and what this game is all about. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll put the next video up, for the next 2 races up soon, and I'll make an annotation here when that's happened. And so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.